Alright y'all, welcome back to Kima's Kitchen. So today we're making chicken stock, which is something you should probably keep in your fridge. Make a big batch, freeze a lot of it, leave some of it in the fridge. It's your basis for a lot of your soups. It's a basis for a lot of your sauces. You can also use it to cook rice and other things instead of water. Use very, very nice chicken stock. So today we're going to run through it. I did shoot another video that basically explains the differences between stocks and broths, so watch that. Very minor difference. One's made with bones, the other one's made with just meat. So watch that for a little extra knowledge. But today we're going to do chicken stock. So basic stuff here, all right? Chicken, bones mostly. I actually use meat too, not just because it gives a little more body, it gives a little bit more flavor. But traditionally it's made with chicken unroasted, uncooked, raw chicken bones, so the chicken carcass. So say you're carving out a chicken and raw, and you're pulling off the breast, you know, keeping the carcass. So keep the carcass, use that for chicken stock. And if you use the chicken breast for, I don't know, schnitzel or whatever you want to use it for, or for salad, that's fine. But chicken bones traditionally with some of that connective tissue, right? Because that's going to give it that gelatinous sort of body to it. Again, I use meat with it too, chicken meat, just because it gives a little bit more flavor. That's fine. So that, and then you've got your mirepoix, which is equal parts onions, celery, and carrots. Now, a lot of people will say, can I use the chicken skin, the onion skins with it? No, do not put onion skins in your broth. They will turn it a little bit cloudy and it won't be as clean. And onion skins are typically dirty and you can't really wash it, right? Just take the onion skins off, just use the onion, no onion skin. Same thing with carrots. If you're getting fresh carrots, which I recommend that you do, shave the carrots off. Right? Like, well, what if I just wash the carrots and just cut it up and throw it in there? Look, you want the stock to be as clean and as pure as possible, right? That means taking out as much of the impurities as you possibly can, which includes your onion skins and the skin on the carrots. So I use a Y peeler for the carrots. Just shave it off and then cut it up and use it. I don't cut up small, I cut up big because it's going to simmer for a good, typically the standard is 3 to 4 hours for chicken stock. I do 5 to 6. So the longer you simmer it, the bigger your mirepoix pieces should be so that they kind of retain their body and kind of release over time and not just completely disintegrate into the stock. Okay, so equal parts onions, celery, and carrots. I use 1 onion, plenty. So then just kind of make it equal, right? And then you've got your, what the French call a bouquet garni, which is a garnished bouquet, right? Which is 4 ingredients. Bay leaves, I use 2 bay leaves, dry is fine. Parsley stems, no leaves, parsley stems. Whole peppercorns, that's 3. And the 4th one is thyme, right? That's your traditional bouquet garni. And so we're going to be using all of that. Now, the way we're going to film this video is going to be in multiple parts. So, introduction, just now. I'm going to then, right now actually, just go ahead and add the chicken into my pot, which I'm hoping you can't see this. All right. So I'm just going to add the chicken to the pot, right? And then I'm going to fill that up with cold, clean, filtered water. Why filtered, Kareem, and not tap? Again, let's talk about impurities. Tap water is not the cleanest thing in the world, especially if you're not New York. New York's tap water is beautiful. Probably the best tap water in the entire country. But some of us, most of us don't live in New York. I live in DC. DC's tap water, Virginia's tap water it's drinkable barely, but it's not great. So they put a lot of fluoride in it and yeah, it's not great. So get filtered water because again, you want the stock to be as clean and as pure as possible, right? So use filtered water. We're gonna fill this guy up, the pot, fill it up with water, and we're gonna start with a slow boil, right? And what that's gonna do is it's gonna raise a lot of the impurities coming out of the chicken, and it's gonna float to the top. You're gonna skim that off, right? Just skim, 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 until it runs mostly clear, and then you're gonna drop it and simmer it for 6 to 8 hours, and we're gonna add your mirepoix and your bouquet garni in it and let it simmer for 6 to 8 hours. I use, well, actually 5 to 6. The water is going to reduce. I like to make enough that I can batch and throw in the freezer, so I'll just continually add water, just keep it somewhat to the top. And then that's it. And then after 5 hours, you stop, let it cool for a bit, and you start pouring it into your big plastic soup containers. You throw it in the freezer, and that's it. It's pretty simple, actually. So let's do that. One thing that I forgot to mention. Before you start the stock and you cut up your chicken, throw it in a bowl with ice cold water, like plenty of ice cold water. What that does is it helps leak out a lot of the blood that's still in the bones and in the chicken. And that helps not have as much impurities in your stock that you have to skim off. So it helps clean up the chicken. So definitely wash the chicken. The younger the chicken, the better, because you get more gelatin in the connective tissue. And it's going to be nice, and it's going to be more pure, but pick up whatever you can find, it's fine. Just make sure you rinse it with water, do the ice bath for 20 minutes, clean, get that nice and clean, and then we start the stock. So I'm going to fill this up with water, I'm going to start the boil, and then I'm going to come back and show you what happens and walk you through it. All right, so we've got the chicken, we've got the water. I've put it on high heat, so it's starting to get to boil. But you see all this nastiness that's floated to the top? That's the stuff that you need to skim off, right? So you see that? And it's gonna keep going for a little bit, right? So just as it forms, I need you to basically skim it off. And that's all the impurities that are in the bones and the cartilage. This stuff will make, if you keep it, will make your stock cloudy, which you don't want to do. You want it to be as clean and as pure as possible, so you skim all that off. This is also like fatty deposits and stuff from the skin, all that, skim all that off, because you don't want fat in your stock. You want it to be as clean and as pure as possible, so you just use a spatula, choke on it. Please don't, here's another tip. Don't use it from here, right? You don't have a whole lot of leverage. You don't have a whole lot of control. Choke on it, right, Chef Brian? Choke on it. And it's much easier to control when your hand is closer to, the end, right there, the actual spatula itself. So just keep skimming it off. The water will eventually boil. It hasn't boiled yet. You don't want it to boil for too long, but you want to get to the point where you've cleared off all of the impurities. Once you've cleared off all the impurities, we're going to drop this down to a simmer, which is basically a tiny little boil. It's like bleep, 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 bleep of little, boils. So that's what a simmer is. You drop it down. Every stove is different. I can't tell you what is going to make it go down to a simmer. You're just going to have to keep playing, right? You don't want it to be a standing still, nothing's happening. You want sort of tiny little bubbles kind of to be playing around in the stock, and that's what a simmer is. So we're going to keep skimming this off. I'm going to stop the video and come back when I show you when it's actually clear, so that you know what it looks like. And that's when we drop it down to a simmer, and we're going to throw in our vegetables, our mirepoix, and our bouquet garni for flavor, and we're just going to let that run for 5 to 6 hours. All right, so this is it. I'll be back. Okay, so another little tip as you're skimming, I actually go in and I turn my chicken around, play with it a little bit, so that it kind of surfaces stuff that's kind of stuck down at the bottom, right? And just keep skimming. You don't want to boil it for too long because then it's going to turn cloudy, but you need to boil it a little bit so that this stuff actually comes out, right? And so you're just skimming it, skim it to a plate. Actually, a good friend of mine from work asked me, hey, Kareem, why don't you make a chicken stock episode? Because every time I try to do it, my stock's cloudy. And I go, why do you think it's cloudy, Sam? She goes, I don't know, man. I'm like, it's because you boiled your chicken for too long. So don't boil the chicken for too long. It's gonna be cloudy. You want it to simmer, right? So we're just gonna boil it enough so we can get all the impurities out. And then once it runs clear and there's no more coming out as you're turning the chicken around, turning it over. And if it starts boiling too much, okay, turn it down a bit, right? Like be reasonable with this. That's when we're going to go to simmer. Now, another question you might want to ask is, well, why don't you just throw in the vegetables right when you throw in the chicken? And, so that way it's just one big step. Well, go ahead and try it. I dare you. And then try skimming all this off with all the vegetables floating at the top. It's nearly impossible. How do I know? Because I made that mistake myself. So, even us who are trying to share whatever little knowledge we have, we've made mistakes too, and we kind of learn from them. So just check in the water first, skim the impurities, and then when it's nice and clean and beautiful, that you can just throw a cup in there and drink it. That's when you add your vegetables. All right, I'll be back. Okay, so I've spent a good amount of time trying to skim this off. Here's one thing I've noticed. The higher the boil, the more impurities will come out. And that makes sense, right? If you're doing a soft boil, it's not going to surface as easily. But if you're doing a hard boil, it'll surface a lot quicker. So it's kind of a trade-off because you don't want to be boiling it for too long. Or boiling it as hard, but you do want to skim as much of this as possible, as quickly as possible, so you can get down to the simmer and get down to actually making the stock. So you can probably see this, and I've probably pulled 4 bowls, and you're going to lose a lot of liquid, but that's okay. Just add water later. That's fine. I can still see, and I don't know if you can see this. Let's see. Here we go. Maybe the camera's, there's too much light coming in from the windows. But you can still see some impurities in it. So just skim as much as possible until you get to the point where, okay, I gotta take care of the kids, I gotta walk the dog, I gotta feed someone, do something more productive than trying to skim stock. And that's when you're like, okay, enough's enough. I've done as much as I could. If there's a little bit left, it's fine. Drop it down. This is where you get down to your simmer. So maybe, I don't know, it depends on your stove really. You're gonna have to play with it. But immediately, as soon as you drop it down, especially if you have an induction stove, you'll see the boil immediately drop. And you'll see the gelatinous sort of, I don't know if you can see it as easily, nature of the stock start to form. And that's excellent, right? Okay, so then, now we add the veggies. So in goes our carrots. Be careful not to burn yourself when you're dropping these in. So just drop them in gently. Or use a spoon or something. Okay, so we got our carrots, we got our onions. And then we're going to add our bouquet garni, which actually, traditionally speaking, it's actually in a kind of a cheesecloth kind of a bouquet. That's where the name comes from. I don't know if it's called anything different in France, if it's not in the traditional bouquet, but same ingredients basically, right? So let's recap. Equal parts onions, celery, and carrots. Shave the carrots and take the skin off the onions. You can leave big pieces in because it's going to simmer for 5 hours, at least the way I do it. Your bouquet garni is, I put 2 bay leaves, whole peppercorns, thyme and parsley stems, no parsley leaves. Parsley leaves will cloud the stock. All right, so just parsley stems, and just whoop, dump it all in. Get it going, a little bit of a, kind of mix it around a bit. Now I've lost a lot of water, probably a third, maybe a quarter to a third. So I'm going to add water, and I'm just going to let it simmer for 5 to 6 hours. And this is a wonderful thing to do in the winter, because your house will just be, or at least your kitchen, will be full of chicken stock smell, which is lovely and warming and heartwarming in the winter. But that's it. It's very simple. So, all right, I'll be back probably in 5-6 hours and show you what it looks like. We'll start to not can it, but put it in the plastic soup containers and show you what that looks like. And then all of it except for one container will go in the freezer, and the rest in the one container will go in the fridge. And you use that as your basis for your soups, your rice if you want, your couscous, anything that uses water you could use stock with, and your sauces, right? It uses chicken stock traditionally. So that's it. Oh, uncovered. Do not cover this. Uncovered. Do not cover this. If you cover it, it's going to steam, and you don't want that. You want just uncovered, okay? Don't try and cheat. If you ask my wife, she'll cheat. She's sitting right in front of me, and she'll tell you, well, it'll just be faster. She cheats. Don't cheat. Uncovered. See you in 5 hours. Told you I'd call you up. All right, y'all, we are back. The stock is done. It's been 6 hours and it's looking and smelling fantastic. So all I'm gonna do is just transfer these containers here. I've labeled them chicken stock. You could do that with painter's tape, it's easy. But I wanna show you what it looks like. Actually, hold on a second. Show you a little trick that's actually quite cool. So when you're straining stock, I like to put a strainer right on it, and because then it'll catch all the sort of herbs and stuff like that. That way you're really straining pure stock. And if you happen to catch any meat, anything in there, you can actually, I'll show you here in a second, kind of squeeze it through. So this is going to be fantastic. So I actually didn't use as much meat this time around than I normally do. So I think the stock is actually, and I didn't use as much onions. I used 1:1:1. Technically speaking, I was actually reading through this in the Culinary Institute of America's basically professional cookbook. So what you do now, I don't know if you can see this here, I'm going to do it over here. You see that? Okay, so what I'll do now, if you catch anything in the strainer, just sort of push it down with your ladle, right? And that way you get as much of the flavor as possible. But this is what it now looks like. It's very clear, and if you actually happen to see there's a gelatinous level at the top, when this cools down in the freezer or in the fridge, it'll actually form a gelatin layer, which is exactly what you're looking for in the stock. That's exactly what makes a stock versus a broth. You won't get this with a broth because you're not using bones, right? This comes from bones and connective tissue. It does not come straight from the meat. So in the past, I used to actually use more onions, almost a 2:1:1 ratio, 2 parts onion, 1 part celery, 1 part carrots. But this time I decided to try 1:1:1. But technically speaking, the CIA's manual actually says 2:1:1. You can argue maybe it's the American version or the French use 1:1:1. It doesn't really matter. I mean, it does, but it doesn't. Do it at what you feel works best for you. But it has to be at least equal parts, if not 2:1:1. So that's the process. That's it. And then I'm gonna basically, you know, make 5 of these things based on whatever I have in here in the pot. Vegetable stock, same exact process, except there's no meat, and there's no need to skim any of the impurities from the chicken because you're not putting any chicken in. It's literally just put your vegetables, put your water, and simmer it. Boil it, like hit boil, and then drop it down to a simmer. And you do that for 2 hours. That's it. And then you strain it. You're done. If you want to get a little bit more color, add a little bit more carrots. You know, it gives it a little bit more of a reddish orange color. But this actually is exactly what you want. It needs to be sort of yellowish, gelatinous. It's got some body to it, but that's basically it. Now, if you're doing fish stock, that's a tiny bit different because the mirepoix is a little bit different. So instead of onions, carrots, and celery, we actually use equal parts onions, parsnips, leeks, and celery. Okay, onions, parsnips, leeks, and celery. And use fish bones, no fish meat, but just fish bones and connective tissue. Same process, right? Drop the fish bones in, that'll come to a boil, take off any impurities, pull it down to a simmer, add your vegetables, add your bouquet garni. The bouquet garni is the same across chicken, vegetable, or fish stock. So that's easy. Now, brown veal stock is actually quite different. So it's the same mirepoix, but you roast the vegetables first. And instead of raw bones, you're actually roasting the bones first. So you put them in the oven, high heat, get them nice and brown. Don't let them steam. If there's any water that comes out of it, you know, strain out the water from the pan, but let them get nice and brown. And then take them out, let them cool down, and then you start the process. But you also roast the vegetables first. And then you add the extra addition that you can add is maybe a little bit of tomato paste in the stock, and that gives it a little bit more of a reddish flavor. But that's really the only difference. So I might actually do an episode on veal stock once I run out of the veal stock. I still have 2 of these guys in there. So once I run out, I'll do one of those. And if I'll do a vegetable stock, I might do one. Fish stock, I might do one, just so you can see that. But that's the basic process. So I hope this has been useful. I guarantee you this is way better than anything you get at the store. Don't buy anything at the store, even if it has the Pope's face on it. Trust me, no one, right? Just do it yourself. It's super easy, and the house smells great, and it's gonna be the best base for cooking rice, for your soups, for, you know, your sauces. And again, absolutely no salt, okay? You do not do salt because when you use it for what you need to use it for, it'll cook down, and then you may have oversalted already. It's just there's no salt, okay? So that's the process. I hope this has been useful, and we'll see you again soon. One thing I forgot to mention. The chicken in the stock that you use. Once you use it for the stock, it's done. There's no nutritional value that's left over in the chicken, so you can't reuse it. I mean, if you want to give it to your dog, fine, but it has no nutritional value. So it's just, yeah, it might be flavored, but zero nutritional value. So the recommendation is you just toss it. Hate to say it, but you toss it. Same with the vegetables. I mean, they're overcooked at that point. They're just, you know, they've been simmering in that thing for 6-8 hours. So no nutritional value in the chicken. Toss it. So it's useless at that point. All right.